Our next question is, how do we train the facilitators or teachers to address the controversial or sensitive topics related to marriage and family? Good question. Well, we train them with an attention to having great sensitivity. One thing we share is that very few of these couples, very few, small percentage of these couples are with the church on a whole array of issues, whether it be the openness to life issue, the difference between natural family planning and contraception, same-sex marriage, and then the church, of course, has lost a certain credibility in light of the priest scandal. That is on top of the fact that this generation is, in many ways, only moderately catechized. And even if they are catechized, they're not necessarily evangelized, and there is a sizable difference. So some ways we do this is the catechesis itself teaches those who teach it. It's a well laid out systematic presentation of the true meaning of human sexuality, the nuanced difference, but it really ends up being a chasm of difference between the natural family planning lifestyle and the contraception lifestyle. But we do have some helpful guides. We have a frequently asked question guide that we've written in a way that is very memorable. We use key phrases to trigger thoughts in people's minds on how to explain various complex teachings, but to do so in a way that is pithy and gentle and pastoral, but also very clear. We also have continuing education phone calls where from time to time topics are addressed, and we're also there on a regular basis just as technical support, but really we encourage the local diocese to do a lot of redundancy training, meaning sending couples who are not presenting on a given day to events where other couples are presenting, and to make modest investments in that continuing education. In other words, giving people stipends, albeit modest ones, but stipends to just attend other people's trainings. So not only stipends for teaching themselves, but even for attending, if that is at all possible. So, and then we also tell people to have recourse to the affirmation of the challenging question that people ask, and then simply telling them, I think I can get you an even better answer, and we'll send it out to everyone on the email list in a few days or in a few weeks. So hopefully that helps. The question is, do we recommend that couples use some sort of inventory like Focus or Prepare, Enrich, in addition to the God's Plan and Living God's Plan programs? Yes, we do. Although many of these questions that are found in these various assessment tools are in our life skills portion, those tools can really serve a very valuable purpose, and so we strongly recommend them. We do think that some of the questions we offer in our life skills component have a little bit more of a faith element to them, or maybe even a good bit more in some instances, whereas some of the inventory tools are often just more rooted in secular psychology. So we think that those tools would benefit by our program. But yeah, no, our program, we believe, and the whole marriage preparation question clearly benefits, in our view, by using these inventory tools. Is it necessary for a priest to be involved directly in our particular marriage preparation content? No, it's not necessary. I think it can be helpful, but I also think there is great power in having a lay run program, one where lay people are delivering the better percentage of presentations, simply because even if a priest has greater objectivity, there is a perception that couples who have a certain lived experience would be better witnesses, or better teachers, or at least better witnesses. I get that argument. I understand it. I still hold to the idea that a priest can clearly deliver this content with great effectiveness. I do like the idea, though, of a priest being a part of the day, if at all possible. Here in Philadelphia, I think fairly soon we're going to be introducing the idea of confession at the end of the day, because I've just spoken with other family life directors who bear witness to the conversion that comes about when someone goes to confession right on the heels of a fairly rich catechetical day. And so also in one other particular diocese, they have the priest give the third talk in our sacramentality portion, where it's really an unpacking of canon law. There are other talks, though, that would make sense as well. So I like the idea of the priest being part of the mix, where we have both a lay and clergy component to the delivery of the content, if at all possible. So a follow-up question to that one is, if it is possible, what role would a priest play in the presentation of either the life skills or the sacramentality portion? Well, talks 1, 2, and 3 in the sacramentality portion can be delivered by a person who's not married with great effectiveness, whether it's a religious or a lay person, because they're just straight catechetical teaching. Granted, it's good to be able to offer a certain witness to married life within these talks, but these talks are fairly universal to the human experience and can be delivered by anyone. Maybe talk number 5 on the topic of contraception. Really, again, all of them could be delivered by a priest or a deacon, certainly a deacon if the deacon is married, by a priest, but there are some that work better in being delivered, I think, by a married lay couple. And then in our life skills program, those talks, again, can be offered by a person who's single or even a professed religious. I do think that the better percentage of them work better with the couple's life experience, but it does work with single presenters. The next question is, in what way is this program sensitive to interfaith marriages where one person may not be Catholic? We do have a section in the appendix of our life skills program that speaks to the interfaith experience. That could be brought forward and incorporated into any number of the other life skills talks. Generally speaking, though, how we accomplish this is just by taking the elephant in the living room question head on in our opening statements of either or God's plan or the living God's plan, the life skills portion. We speak very clearly of a welcome that we extend to non-Catholics. We explain that although Catholics may be bound differently to various teachings that they've been exposed to in the past, more than a non-Catholic who may not have been exposed to various things in the past, we do, though, go on to explain that truth is universal. Truth really is written into the natural law, and that something that is true for a Catholic is true really for all, even if there is a difference in one's subjective guilt in not living something out. So we address this head on. We do it with great sensitivity. We extend a very rich, sincere, and warm welcome to non-Catholics. And then we explain how Catholicism means universal, that it really is an expression meant for all people, even if one may be bound in a different manner to the moral law that they've been exposed to by being raised lifelong Catholics. So the next question is, how can this program invite couples to learn more about other resources that could benefit? So the next question is, how does this program invite couples to learn more about resources in general for marriage and the family? There is no intentional part of the program right now that focuses on that question, although I can't help but think that just in the anecdotes of the current presenters, whether it be for life skills or God's plan, and even in my own past, that other resources have not been referenced. We do have sections in an appendix that speak of other resources, and I think a general message would be communicated that it's a good thing to continue to form oneself, but nothing specifically is in the program that intentionally focuses on other resources, with the exception of the companion book that we have to the Sacramentality program, a very well-known book, probably the biggest selling book for preparing couples for marriage in the church today, known as The Good News About Sex and Marriage, 115 Questions and Honest Answers to Your Questions About Sexuality. It's a very, very fine resource. We speak often about that, and we reference it in the text. But besides that, any other resources would be addressed in the appendix. The last question is, how do you recommend we vary the demographics or the characteristics of our various instructors or facilitators? This is a good question that has a nuanced answer. I think we should look at who is presenting and be willing to make the tough calls if a particular presenter is not skilled, or if for some reason there's something that will not be received well by the couples. For example, I run the program here in Philadelphia in addition to publishing the materials for many dioceses. And in our first year of building our teams, I was cross-pollinating a lot of different presenters. And one time we ran into a little bit of a shortage with presenters, and so I placed in a certain combination of couples. And then I noticed late in the game, after everything was scheduled, that the overwhelming majority of the 5 couples over 2 days who were leading the program had a very large number of children. Now, of course, large families are a beautiful thing and really can be a great witness to trust in God and trust in the teachings of our Lord through the church. And a whole host of things can be taught from couples who have larger families. But I also saw that it could be sending an unintended message, and that was that the only way to be Catholic is to have a large family, which of course the church would disagree with. We are called to have the number that we believe we're called to have, as long as we have recourse to the moral law and have a posture of generosity. But clearly this might mean 2 children for some, and it might mean 8 children for another. So I think you should be concerned not only, of course, with that demographic or with that characteristic, but really making sure your couples are not necessarily all too young or all too old. Recently, I think we had an ideal marriage preparation program where we had one presenter who, they were married the longest, more than 50 years, and they had 2 children. Then another couple was married 25 years. They had 4 children. And then a third couple was married, I think, less than 10 years, and they had, about 10 years, and they had 6 children. And so the youngest couple had the largest, and the oldest couple had the least. And then another couple was right there in the center. And then we had a single presenter who was presenting that day as well. So I think it's important that you mix up age and maybe at times even race and the number of children and a host of factors. Keeping in mind the words of St. Paul, which I think might be appropriate here, where he says that he becomes all things to all men for the sake of the gospel, so that he can win some to the gospel. I think there are times when we need to be shrewd as serpent, but our hearts as innocent as doves. When we make choices like this, I think ultimately that type of discernment will usually come out with a better end result.